What's up, guys? Aquarium Conversations back here again with another video. And this one's going to be a little different. For, I guess, the past 2.5 years or so that I've had this channel, I've showed you tank unboxings, a lot of fun stuff as far as the possibilities of what you can do with smaller tanks, and have worked my way up with some bigger tanks. I have talked about filtration and lighting, and really the channel has had a I've tried to keep it positive. I've tried to keep it positive and encouraging, and even in the comments do what I can to try and help people and educate people. And about a month or so ago, I did a video when I talked about the aquarium hobby and kind of what it's done for me from a positive standpoint. And everything in that video I still hold true to. However, there's another side to the hobby that I think a lot of people don't really want to talk about. And if you guys have picked up on the blue tint in my water, you maybe have an idea about what I'm going to get into. And what I want to talk about now is that, and this isn't to, discourage anybody or scare anybody out of the hobby, but, there are going to be things that happen in your tank that you may or may not have control over, and that will essentially determine, whether your fish are healthy or unhealthy, or best case scenario, they live a long, healthy life, or they pass unexpectedly. So I am currently medicating my 30-gallon tank. This is the 30-gallon extra tall tank in my dining room. About 5 days ago, I saw some white spots on my Colombian fin tetras, and I'll see if I can zoom in. And if you look at their tails and their fins, you can see the white spots. That is known as either the white spot disease or ick. I have battled ick before and had success with it. I have been defeated by it. I don't want to say it's common in the hobby, but from my experience and people that I've talked to, and even researching on YouTube and other sources, it is common. From what I know about it, it's a parasite that essentially can be, dwelling inside the fish. It can be passed on from different fish. It can be passed on from, hell, you can, use one net in another tank and pass it on to the other tank by using it. You can get it from different siphons. Essentially, it's pretty easily transferred from tank to tank. How these tetras got it, and even I have some Acara down here that I'm really concerned about, and this, I don't want to discourage anybody, but they're pretty much down here and real lethargic, and they're not looking well. Okay, so I have to kind of consider, maybe some mistakes I made here. Everything that's been in this tank has been in here for months, and I have not had any issues. The only thing I can think of is somehow I may have transferred it from one tank to another. A month or so ago, those black Phantom Tetras, they had it, but they were in a separate tank. The only thing I can think of is either maybe a siphon or a net somehow. But I haven't put any fish in this tank, so I wouldn't have used the net. So I'm not really sure. I'm kind of at a loss. And quite frankly, I'm not really too concerned with how it happened. I'm now in, medication mode or treatment mode. This is maybe a bit of advice. I would, not to say that they're not knowledgeable, but in a case like this, I would maybe defer to somebody at your local fish store over somebody at a Petco or PetSmart. I'm just speaking from experience. I simply and honestly, I get most of my fish from my local aquarium store, and I went in there. I said, "Hey, what do you guys use to treat ick?" This is what he recommended. I'll let you guys pause that. Hopefully that focuses. Hang on. That's what I use there. I'm sorry, it's not focusing. Okay, there we go. I'll let you guys, take a look at that. I know there's other treatments out there and medications, but I feel confident talking to the people at my local fish store that this is the best product to use. Again, I'm sure people have different opinions, but the fact of the matter is I've kind of got my hands full with this situation here. I'm using aquarium salts. I'm doing my water changes, and in a lot of the videos, I've kind of reached out, or I've had people reach out to me and ask me questions, but consider this kind of a cry for help. And any recommendations you guys can make, I will definitely take into consideration, because I'm looking at best case scenario, maybe I lose a couple fish. Worst case scenario, I could potentially lose everything in this tank. Even the plants are looking, I mean, truth be told, if ick is all throughout this tank, everything in this tank will eventually have to go. That includes obviously the substrate, the plants, the wood, the sponges, in the filters and things like that. Everything will have to go. I'll have to essentially empty this tank out, scrub it out, maybe use ammonia and something like that to clean it out. So I'm hoping that that's not the case, but nevertheless, I'm prepared for that. Have I lost fish before? Absolutely. Anyone in the hobby who will tell you that they've never lost fish is lying. Again, this is all kind of part of that process I was referring to in that video I did about my thoughts on the aquarium hobby. You got to take the good with the bad. I do believe, one thing I can do, and I'm strongly considering, and a lot of people talk about quarantining your fish. The fish that I get, essentially, they're not in tanks mixed with other fish. You wouldn't necessarily consider them a community tank. When you go into and this is kind of what's different from your Petcos and PetSmarts. When you go into an aquarium hobby, and this isn't to say that this is foolproof, but again, this is kind of what's worked for me. Is the fish are in, you'll have your neon tetras over here, you'll have your black neon tetras, you'll have your powder blue gouramis, you'll have your flame gouramis, and they're all in separate tanks. So in a lot of cases, they are in fact quarantined. Another thing with my local fish store, there are some tanks that will say under observation, or essentially what they'll do is they'll put an X on the tank, and you can't purchase those fish because those fish are being medicated, or maybe there's some sort of condition or something like that, and they will not allow you to buy the fish, essentially. So all the fish you're buying are healthy fish. That's not to say that maybe something fell through the cracks. I don't know. But I think one thing that I think will help me out is maybe setting up, a quarantine tank, a small quarantine tank. I do have a tank right here. This is if you guys remember, this was a 13-gallon widescreen tank. I'm thinking about keeping that and setting it up as a quarantine tank. So when I do get fish, they will go in here first. So I can monitor them for a few weeks before I put them in the tank. Again, I don't know if it would have helped me in this case because all these fish were fine up until a couple days ago, and they've been in here for months. When I put these, Colombian redfin tetras in there, they were small. This flame gourami, I've had him for, oh boy, about a year. The Acar that are down here were fine. I put them in there. They were little babies. So again, trying to find out what happened. I've bought all new nets. I'm probably going to try and find out a way to maybe sterilize my siphon, or hell, if I need to, I'll buy another one, and maybe have. And I mean, now we're looking at money and things like that, and that's where it kind of gets frustrating. But that's something I'm going to have to balance out. Do I need to get a siphon for every tank? Probably not. And I think quarantining the fish will kind of help with introducing them in the tanks and things like that. So even the plants have been in here for months. These Cryptspiralis have been in here for months. So again, it's frustrating. If you guys can't tell by the sound of my voice, I am frustrated, concerned. But this is part of that process. I do believe one way or another, I'll come out of this more educated, being a better place to to keep things like this from happening in the future. I've seen YouTube videos and some of the most experienced fish keepers this happens to. So we'll see what happens. Again, any thoughts or ideas or recommendations that I can do, please send them my way. Any questions or comments, I'll do my best to answer them. But this is one side of the aquarium hobby that quite simply sucks, but this is still part of the process. This isn't something that I enjoy, but I will feel a million times better if I'm able to come out of this with obviously no losses, a couple losses, and I think being a better place for the future, and a better place to help you guys out. So keep your fingers crossed. We'll see what happens, but I did want to share this this unfortunate side of the hobby with you guys. I didn't want to hide it from you guys. A lot of my followers, I believe, were beginners, and again, this is not to discourage you. This is just kind of the reality that things like this can happen. The more information I get on how to treat, prepare, and even defend against this, I'll be more than happy to pass it on to you, so we can kind of all be in a better place to fight off unfortunate things like this. But wanted to share it with you regardless. And like I said, keep your fingers crossed. And as always, I will talk to you guys down the road. Bye.